Great evening, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of The Interface with me, your host, Mack Crayton III. And I am so excited to be here with you. As you see from the topic, we are in Pride Month, and we're asking you the question, how do you define sexuality? How do you define sexuality? So we are coming from my book, The Gender, Sex, and Sexuality, The Interface Between Science and Scripture. And we are coming from that chapter that actually deals with the topic of sexuality. So we're going to be talking about that on today. Remember, you can get all of the books on Amazon.com. So just go to Amazon, scroll to in the menu to books, and then key in my name, and you'll be able to get all the books. And as you're coming into the room, be sure to give me a shout out so I can see who you are and where you're coming in from. And the date is coming up also, June 13th. June 13th, I will be in Shreveport, Louisiana. So be sure to come by Flynn Bookstore of Flynn's Christian Supply on Hearn Avenue in Shreveport, Louisiana, noon till 2 o'clock on Saturday, June 13th. I'll be there, book signing and discussion. So I hope to see you there. All right, we're going to jump in so that we have our time here. Let me get my clock, because see, sometimes I get excited and start going overboard, don't I? All right, so we're going to get started. We are in, again, book Gender, Sex, and Sexuality, and I'll get to my page. So sexuality, so this chapter is actually, I'm coming from, is chapter 10 in the book. And it's titled, Sexuality, It's Complicated. It is. Remember, go on my website, www.craytonservicesllc. You can get merch. You can order books and t-shirts as well. Okay, I'll begin reading from there, and then we'll do a little bit of discussion, okay? So, it says, let's begin this conversation with a basic question. What is sexuality? In our modern world, sexuality encompasses one's attractions to others and how one self-identifies sexually based upon their attractions. However, during antiquity, sexuality was not understood as a fixed personal identity in the way that it is today. Meaning, sexualities were not categorized with labels such as gay, straight, or bisexual. But instead, sexual behavior was typically measured against religious rules and societal roles concerning social status, gender, power, or marital status. Because of this, what mattered more was with whom one engaged in sexual activity, i.e., married, single, slave, free, rich, poor, etc. So again, that's during biblical times or antiquity, rather than a particular sexual orientation. Any attempts to apply modern sexual identity labels to ancient societies can be disingenuous. And sometimes we try to do that. We try to take our modern terminology and belief system that we have today and apply it to biblical terms. Thanks for joining me, Jay Reed and Myra. Thank you for joining me today. And again, our topic is, how do you define sexuality? Okay, so I'll continue reading. Out of the gate, it is impossible to understand that the modern concepts of sexuality is self-determined, which means other people cannot decide your sexuality or sexual orientation for you. This includes parents and their children. Parents do not have the authority to decide how their son or daughter self-identifies regarding their sexuality. So I'll read this paragraph because, as I mentioned, it is June and we are in Pride Month. And I think this particular paragraph that I'm about to read will be apropos. Okay. Certainly, children can profess a sexual orientation that is acceptable to their parents. However, it does not mean that it's the truth. Whether a person self-identifies as being heterosexual, homosexual, or some other designation on the sexuality spectrum, they deserve acceptance and support. Please understand that cursing them out or verbally degrading them will not change a person's sexuality. Physically whipping or beating them will not change their sexuality. Kicking them out of the house or withdrawing financial support will not change their sexuality. Nor will threatening them with the eternal damnation in hell change their sexuality. Negative actions such as these will not change a person's sexuality. However, they will likely alienate you from the person that you love. Message there. Again, sexuality is how one self-identifies sexually in relation to one's attractions to others. This means that sexuality cannot be assigned to a person, and it is not a choice made from rebellion, not for popularity, or out of religious defiance. Instead, it is a person's innate, inborn, self-born, so innate nature that reveals itself as one grows, develops, and matures. All right. So based upon our working definition of sexuality that we've just stated, can we truly say that someone is born straight or gay? That's the question that's been on people's minds, huh? All right. So it is, the title of this chapter is Sexuality is Complicated. So it is complicated. Let's look at the layers. And so often the problem has been we've tried to simplify it and water it down rather than calling it what it is, very complicated. So first of all, sexual attractions is based upon who we are attracted to naturally. Okay, and sometimes we see that in even toddlers or babies, they gravitate towards a particular person or gender or particular look of a person. And we're like, wow, he likes you or she likes you or something like that. And they're still an infant. That's part of our innate attractions. Next, as we get to the ages of about 3 or 4, so the next layer is to determine what is our gender identity. So around ages 3 to, want to make sure I'm saying it right, 3 to 4 years old, we come into knowing whether we are, let's back up. At birth, we are assigned a gender. There are 2 genders, male, female. Medically and scientifically, there are 2 genders. 2 biological sexes. Gender is something different. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so at birth, you are assigned your biological sex, and there are 2. There's male, female. As you grow, you are taught by your family, your parents, that you are a girl or you're a boy. And by age 3 or 4, children can start to identify or align their behaviors with the biological sex that they have been assigned or they are told that they are. What do we mean by that? So as children grow, we would start to say even their clothing. So boys will probably be dressed in blue. So if you're doing a gender reveal, you do the blue confetti, right? If it's a girl, it's the pink. And then the theme continues. When you're bringing the baby home from the hospital, you dress her. If it's a girl, we put her in pink. If it's a boy, you put it in blue, put him in blue. And then we start to buy toys accordingly and clothing accordingly. Right? As they're toddlers, they're too young to make a decision. They're too young to even know what they're wearing. Right? But we will assign that to them based upon their biological sex. So by the time they're 3 or 4, they can say, I'm a boy or I'm a girl. Right? Okay. For others, they will then to say, if we are being told you're a boy, but innately their brain tells them I'm a girl, that's when we start to have the transgender occurring. And it can be as early as 3 to 4 years old, where you're told based upon your genitalia what your biological sex is, but our mind and our body then have to align and agree in, like, I have a penis, I'm told I'm a boy, I am a boy. I believe I'm a boy, and vice versa. I have a vagina, I'm told I'm a girl, I believe I'm a girl. And then transgender would be, I have a penis, I'm being told I'm a boy, but my mind says I'm a girl. Right? And so that's where we get to the trans individuals. Right? So first, we have what is our biological sex, how do we identify ourselves, and then what are those natural attractions that we're having. Now, based upon our attractions, we will start to equate that with a sexuality. So we're kind of taught that if you are attracted to the opposite sex, then you are heterosexual. If you are attracted to the same sex, you are homosexual. And we can say homosexual or lesbian for female. And then if you're attracted to both, then you are bisexual. So those are the three kind of known categories. Next week, we'll talk about some of the other categories as well. All right. So, or designations. So based upon that, those attractions and how a person would then choose to identify as one or the other. Hi, Herman. Thank you for joining me on today. So would be based upon societal rules, a person's personal world, meaning your household. What's accepted in your household? Will you be supported in identifying yourself with either one or either of those particular sexualities? So, religious beliefs. So would you be taught that you're going to be damned to hell if you choose homosexual or lesbian or bisexual? So the child will start to pick up on conversation in the household as well as their religious upbringing, and they'll begin to know what to say, what not to say. They'll start to hear little things like boys don't do that, girls don't do that, boys don't play with this, boys don't do this, and girls do this, and boys do that. So come do this, you're a boy. And so they start to learn those little pick up on things of what are gender roles. So based upon your biological sex being male, then you're supposed to wear pants. You're supposed to play with toys, trucks, and da-da-da. Okay. Based upon your biological sex being female, you're supposed to like putting on makeup and playing with dolls and da-da-da. And so we assign those gender duties or gender roles based upon the biological sex. So you're growing up. So remember, child's 3, 4, we're now hitting puberty. You're between 9 and 13 years old. You've heard for all of those years what things are acceptable for being a male, which ones are acceptable for being a female. You've heard within your family whether there's acceptance based upon whether it's a TV commercial, whether they've seen something, someone at church, someone in the neighborhood. You kind of know your family's stance on the different sexualities. So that child, as they're coming into age 9 through 13, we begin to understand our sexual attractions more. And then based upon who we are attracted to, we start to define our identity. So you're then hitting puberty, you are in middle school or something, and you find, little Johnny little Deshaun has a girlfriend, and then the family's all excited. Deshaun likes girls. Yeah, you got a girlfriend. Or, little Layla likes boys now. She has a boyfriend. And oh, yeah. But it might not be such celebration when Deshaun likes DeMarcus. Okay? Or Layla likes Caitlin. Right? So we start to see that in that child then trying to understand and navigate what is their sexuality, who are they naturally attracted to. So again, attractions are inborn. Now, whether or not you're going to act upon that attraction or not will then start to define your sexuality. It doesn't make the attraction go away. It's just whether you feel safe enough to act upon it, and will you be supported and accepted by acting upon it or not. Okay, so let's kind of walk through that just a little bit. Okay, say a person has an attraction, so we'll go back to Layla. So she has an attraction for Caitlin, but she also has an attraction for, say, DeMarcus. Okay, And so she likes boys, she likes girls. And she was like, oh, I'm a little bit confused. I don't know. What does this mean? Does it mean that I'm bisexual or what? But Caitlin knows that bisexual and being lesbian may not be accepted in her household. She's heard teachings against it. She's heard people make jokes in her household. And so she has now built a closet for I can't get the word out, closet, as we say, they're in the closet, so they know what to say, what not to say to family members. So she knows that she can express her likes and attractions for DeMarcus, but not so much for Layla. All right, or Caitlin, right? So she may go through her entire life then just like, well, I'm going to date boys because it's not acceptable to date girls. My religious teaching is telling me that I should not have attractions for girls, so that's suppressed. And she may go to her entire life. She marries, have children, and live her entire life as a heterosexual woman, never acknowledging that she does have attractions for girls, okay, or of same sex. Or it may play out. She may grow up, go to college, and while she's away in college in a dorm, she has an experimentation, right, with a female and figures that, okay, well, I got to act out that attraction. Maybe she might even for a while be in a relationship with. But when it's time to get to settle down, have a stable, monogamous relationship long term, she may decide, I'm going to go with what society accepts. And very few people know about this relationship I had with a female. I'll still identify myself as heterosexual and go on with my life. Okay, so sometimes that happens. What are we saying? The sexuality that you self-identify. Oh, because we didn't say that. We did say that in the definition. Sexuality is self-identified. So you get to decide what your sexuality is, and you're basing that upon who you're attracted to. And sometimes we get to another chapter, sexual behavior. Not only who you're attracted to, but who you actually engage in sex with will come together to define. Some people will say, well, I didn't engage or have behavior with that particular biological sex, so I'm choosing this as my sexual identity. Some people may say, in my teens or early years, I was this. And now that I'm older, I'm that, right? So your sexuality can change throughout your life. It may change depending on your world that you live in. So sometimes people go through a religious conversion, and they feel that what their attractions were when they were younger, I need to dissociate myself from those attractions and then only engage in attractions that are accepted by this denomination or this ministry or this religious belief that I'm now accepting. And so they will move away from that based upon their desire to be accepted within this particular group. It doesn't mean that the innate attraction goes away. So just because you're not acting upon the attraction does not mean that it isn't there. Just because you suppress it doesn't mean that it's not there. So we are based upon our innate attractions. So are people born gay? So we just said your sexuality is based upon your self-identity, but your attractions are inborn. So it's kind of difficult to say. You are born with your attraction to the same sex, opposite sex, or both, or neither, right? And then how you define it is basically up to you. Now, there is another caveat there. Just because you are too young at birth to self-identify to say, hey, I'm gay, okay? Because we can't talk and we don't know what sexuality is. But at the same time at birth, you can't identify yourself ethnically either, right? We're born into the world, but as an infant, you don't know if you're black, you're white, you're German, you're Italian, you're Irish. You don't know how to self-identify. As you get older, you embrace that genealogy and that heritage. But it still doesn't mean that you weren't that identity or that ethnicity from birth. Same with our attractions and orientations. So you were born that at birth, but you were too young to identify it for yourself, but nonetheless, you were. So are we born with our sexuality? Yes, we are. Can you verbalize it at birth? No, you can't. But as we grow and get older, we then are able to actually identify who we are at birth and what's innate to us at birth. Right? So you are born with your attractions, but they can be changed. They can be masked. They can be suppressed based upon your environment, whether the group of people that you live with and you affiliate with will be supportive, accepting, or not. And if not, then that forms the closet that you need to hide in, and it doesn't make it go away. You just reveal it when those people are not around, or you go on a trip, or you go out of town, or you move away from home and you can express yourself in another state or another country where you're living. And then you go back to conforming to who people think you are. And so that is what people start to say, the double life, or living on the DL, the down low. Okay, so you have your innate, but because the group of people are not supportive that you're around, you may hide that until you are off somewhere else doing something. But sometimes those worlds collide, right? And then there's a quandary there. All right, well, that is it. So how do we define our sexuality? Sexuality is based upon our innate, our inborn. When we are born into this world, we have attractions to biological sexes, whether it's to one, whether it's to both, and we'll get into some of that terminology on next time. What is monosexual? What is bisexual? What is a pansexual? What is omnisexual? We're going to get into those. So I define them in the book. And there is a glossary in the back of the book. So if you want to just get it for that purpose, so I define all those terms for you. And if you're confused on what is that, even within the queer community, if you need to know what a top is and a bottom and butch and femme and lipstick and all of those different terms, it's in the glossary. So you need to get the book so you can be in the know. It is Pride Week, so happy Pride to everyone. Be sure there's no better book to get for Pride than Gender, Sex, and Sexuality. All right, so that you can be in the know and you can be accepting of all people. I love you, but God loves you more. I appreciate the privilege of your time. And one more plug for Saturday, June 13th in Shreveport, Louisiana. I will be at Flynn's Christian Supplies, or Flynn's Christian Bookstore on Hearn Avenue in Shreveport. Everybody in the Shreveport, Bossier, Arclatech area knows Hearn Avenue, knows Flynn Bookstore. It's been around for decades. So come on out. I'll be excited to be there. And all of you who are attending the BNLU reunion, come on out over to Flynn's Bookstore. We'll be celebrating our college reunion in Shreveport that weekend as well. So come on over and support your fellow alum from NLU, ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe, best known as Northeast Louisiana University. All right. So come on out. I love you. I thank you for the privilege of your time on today. And love someone. Be sure to attend some Pride events. It's for education. It's just like Black History Month. You learn about the history of the culture, right? So go learn, be supportive, love your neighbors. All right. God bless.